Perhaps no woman in history has remained more influential and evoked as many controversies and debates than Cleopatra. Her story has been told 1,000 times in films, dramas, and novels. She even inspired Shakespeare to pen down a touching tragedy. From the times of Shakespeare till Netflix, no one stopped talking about Cleopatra. She has been on canvases, in the print, and featured in countless films and documentaries, inspiring artists and authors alike. Her name has become synonymous with charm, beauty, intellect, and power. Her ravishing beauty beheld the Egyptians and ruled the Romans. It is believed that she acquired power using her political prowess and charm, but despite the glitz and glamour of her life, little is known about her real life. Beneath the glitz and glamour of her life portrayed in the popular culture are some tantalizing mysteries of her life that left an indelible influence on the globe and changed the course of history. Her thirst for power and fierce sibling rivalry had taken her dark tale to extreme. In the realm of classic romance, her story reads like a beloved novel. It was a tale of star-crossed lovers, passionate encounters beneath the moonlit sky, and handwritten letters exchanged in secret. The pages of her life were filled with chapters that celebrated the timeless dance of hearts entwined. So what do we know about Cleopatra? Who was the real Cleopatra, and what drove her to assume authority and remain in power for over 3 decades? Let's take a mesmerizing trip through the corridors of history, where we can dust off the sands of time and embark on a quest to unravel the captivating secrets concealed within her life. Her journey was nothing short of a captivating saga, adorned with the glittering jewels of glamour, opulence, timeless romance, profound love, and the lurking shadows of betrayal. Birth and early life. Cleopatra VII was born in the early months of 69 BC. Her father was the ruling Ptolemaic pharaoh, Ptolemy XIV, but her mother remains uncertain, with indications pointing towards Cleopatra V Tryphena, who may have been the same individual as Cleopatra VI Tryphena. Cleopatra had an older sister, Berenice IV Epiphania, born to this mother. Cleopatra was the third of potentially 6 siblings within her family, all of whom shared the same father, Ptolemy XIII. The Ptolemaic dynasty, rooted in Macedonian Greek heritage and with ties to Alexander the Great, had governed Egypt since 305 BC. In line with tradition, male rulers in the Ptolemaic dynasty bore the name Ptolemy, while queens often carried names like Cleopatra, Arsinoe, or Berenice. In the wake of Cleopatra's birth, an enigmatic veil of mystery descended upon her maternal lineage. Cleopatra Tryphena, the woman presumed to be her mother, faded into obscurity within the annals of official records. It was as though history itself conspired to shroud her existence in secrecy. Legend, ever the elusive storyteller, whispers of a shadowed fate that befell Cleopatra Tryphena, an unsettling tale that hints at the possibility of her untimely demise. In hushed tones, the word murder dances like an uninvited specter through the pages of antiquity, a chilling specter that has never been fully exorcised. The accounts and chronicles that would have borne witness to Cleopatra Tryphena's life have been torn asunder by time, leaving an unfathomable void in the narrative of Cleopatra's heritage. We don't know who murdered her, but this subject hasn't been discussed much. Soon after her mother's rather unexpected demise, Ptolemy XII went on to have 3 more children in the absence of his wife, Cleopatra's sister, Arsinoe IV, and her 2 brothers, Ptolemy III, Theos Philopator, and Ptolemy XIV. Cleopatra's upbringing was marked by intellectual pursuits under the guidance of her tutor, Philostratos. She honed her skills in Greek oration and philosophy, likely at the renowned museum, which included the famed Library of Alexandria. Little Cleopatra and Egyptians didn't know that little girl would one day rule them and become so popular. Her life would go on to be marked by her political prowess, captivating beauty, and her legendary interactions with the likes of Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, making her a central figure in the history of ancient Egypt and the Roman Empire. Reign and death of Cleopatra's father. Her mother's death, along with challenges during her father's reign, made Cleopatra's childhood marred with difficulties. In the year 65 BC, the Roman censor, Marcus Licinius Crassus, presented a proposal to the Roman Senate advocating for the annexation of Ptolemaic Egypt. However, both Crassus's bill and a similar one put forth by tribune Servilius Rullus in 63 BC faced rejection by the Senate. In response to the looming threat of annexation, Ptolemy XIV, the ruling pharaoh of Egypt, took a diplomatic route. He offered substantial remuneration and extravagant gifts to influential Roman statesmen, including Pompey, who was engaged in a campaign against Mithridates VI of Pontus, and later to Julius Caesar after he assumed the role of Roman consul in 59 BC. Despite these efforts, Ptolemy XII's profligate spending eventually led him into financial ruin. To cover his mounting debts, he had to seek loans from the Roman banker Gaius Rabirius Postumus. The situation further deteriorated in 58 BC when the Romans annexed Cyprus and accused Ptolemy of Cyprus, Ptolemy XIII, his own brother, of piracy. Rather than facing exile in Paphos, Ptolemy of Cyprus chose to take his own life. Ptolemy XII notably maintained graceful silence about his brother's death. This, along with his willingness to cede traditional Ptolemaic territory to the Romans, significantly eroded his standing among the general public, already suffering by his unconventional and rather harsh economic policies. As a consequence of these circumstances, Ptolemy XIV was forcefully dragged out of Egypt. His journey took him first to Rhodes, then Athens, and finally to the villa of the Triumvir Pompey, situated in the Alban Hills near Praeneste, Italy. During this tumultuous period, Ptolemy XIV was accompanied by his daughter Cleopatra, who was around 11 years old at the time. This exile marked a critical chapter in the life of Cleopatra, foreshadowing her eventual return and rise to prominence in Egypt's tumultuous political landscape. Was she going to rise, or was she going to suffer at the hands of cultural taboos of her time, which didn't let a woman rule? It was apparent Cleopatra was born to rise to power and prominence. Cleopatra tasted the sweetness of assuming authority and ruling people when she was just 14 years old. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was restored to the throne after spending 3 years in exile, and Cleopatra was appointed as his co-regent. However, her powers were considerably limited during this joint rule. This return to power came at a high cost, as her elder sister Berenice, who had assumed control during their father's absence, lost her life. It's worth noting that there may have been another elder sister, Cleopatra VI Tryphena, but she had also passed away by this point. These circumstances led to 18-year-old Cleopatra becoming the co-regent alongside her brother, Ptolemy IX, who was just 10 years old following their father's death in March 51st BC. The exact details of Ptolemy XII's death are not well documented, but it occurred in this volatile political climate. His demise paved the way for Cleopatra, who was just 18 years old at the time, to take on a more prominent role as co-regent alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, ultimately setting the stage for her own remarkable and historic reign. Following the pharaonic tradition of preserving the royal bloodline, Cleopatra married her younger brother and co-ruler. However, it quickly became apparent that she had no intention of sharing power with him. But fate had some different plans for her. Within a matter of months, official documents no longer bore Ptolemy III's name, and Cleopatra's image began appearing alone on coins, signifying her increasing control over Egypt's affairs. Ascension to the throne. It is quite interesting to notice how a young girl rose to prominence and assumed authority. Upon assuming the throne, Cleopatra embarked on a significant journey to Hermonthis near Thebes, where she oversaw the installation of a sacred Bushis bull, revered as an intermediary for the god Montu in ancient Egyptian religion. However, her early reign was marked by a series of pressing challenges. Cleopatra faced a dire famine caused by drought and a shortage of the annual Nile flooding. Lawlessness spread due to the actions of the Gabiniani, Roman soldiers left unemployed and assimilated into Egyptian society by Gabinius. In addition to these difficulties, Cleopatra inherited her father's considerable debts, owing the Roman Republic a substantial sum of 17.5 million drachmas. In 50 BC, Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus, proconsul of Syria, sent his sons to Egypt, likely to negotiate with the Gabiniani and recruit them for the defense of Syria against the Parthians. Tragically, these envoys were tortured and murdered, possibly with covert encouragement from rogue officials within Cleopatra's court. Cleopatra attempted to hold the Gabiniani accountable by sending them as prisoners to Bibulus, but he returned them, criticizing her interference as a Roman Senate prerogative. By August 29, 51 BC, official documents began listing Cleopatra as the sole ruler, indicating her rejection of her brother Ptolemy III as a co-ruler, even though they had probably married, though no record exists. The Ptolemaic tradition of sibling marriage, introduced earlier in their dynasty, was practiced by Cleopatra, but was viewed unfavorably by contemporary Greeks. Despite her rejection, Ptolemy III retained influential allies, including the eunuch Pothinos, who had served as his tutor and regent. Others conspiring against Cleopatra included Achillas, a prominent military commander, and Theodotus of Chios, another tutor of Ptolemy III. Cleopatra briefly sought an alliance with her brother Ptolemy XIII, but by autumn 50 BC, Ptolemy XIII had the upper hand, as suggested by his signing of documents before his sister and the establishment of his first regnal date in 49 BC. The struggle for power in Egypt continued to intensify during this turbulent period. Assassination of Pompey. In the summer of 49 BC, Cleopatra found herself embroiled in a bitter conflict within Alexandria, as she and her forces clashed with her brother, Ptolemy III. At the same time, Gnaeus Pompeius, the son of the famous Roman general Pompey, sought her military support. This request came after Julius Caesar, fresh from his campaigns in Gaul, had forced Pompey and his supporters to flee to Greece. In a rare moment of agreement, Cleopatra and Ptolemy III decided to aid Gnaeus Pompeius by providing him with 60 ships and 500 troops, including the notorious Gabiniani soldiers. This move helped alleviate some of Egypt's debt to Rome. However, as the battle for power in Alexandria intensified, Cleopatra was eventually forced to flee the city and take refuge in the region of Thebes. By the spring of 48 BC, Cleopatra traveled to Roman Syria alongside her younger sister, Arsinoe IV, in an effort to gather an army for an invasion of Egypt. Upon her return with an army, she encountered resistance from her brother's forces, which included the Gabiniani soldiers mobilized against her. Cleopatra's advance to Alexandria was halted, and she established a camp outside Pelusium in the eastern Nile Delta. Meanwhile, in Greece, a pivotal battle occurred at Pharsalus on 9th August 48 BC, resulting in the defeat of most of Pompey's army and his retreat to Tyre in Lebanon. Considering his close ties to the Ptolemies, Pompey chose Egypt as his refuge, hoping to rebuild his forces. However, Ptolemy XIII's advisors were wary of Pompey, using Egypt as a stronghold during the ongoing Roman civil war. A cunning scheme, orchestrated by Theodotus, lured Pompey to the shores near Pelusium under the pretense of an invitation. Tragically, he was ambushed and killed on 28th of September 48th BC. Ptolemy XIII believed this act demonstrated his authority and simultaneously sought to appease Julius Caesar by sending Pompey's severed and embalmed head to him. Caesar arrived in Alexandria by early October, expressing sorrow and anger over Pompey's assassination. He called upon both Ptolemy XIII and Cleopatra to put down their arms and reconcile, which was yet another pivotal moment in their shared history. Relationship with Julius Caesar. Despite the chasm of years that separated them, Cleopatra and Julius Caesar embarked on an extraordinary and fateful romantic journey that defied not only the conventions of their time, but also the norms of age and social stature. With Julius Caesar being approximately 3 decades her senior, their union was not merely a liaison, but an intertwining of destinies that would cast a profound impact on both their personal and political lives. This romantic entanglement marked an unprecedented shift in Cleopatra's trajectory. She, the ambitious and astute queen of Egypt, found herself drawn into the orbit of one of the most powerful men in the world. For Cleopatra, Caesar became not only a lover, but also a political ally of unparalleled influence. His unwavering support opened doors that had long remained closed to her, enabling her to strengthen her grip on the Egyptian throne and extend her reign. Julius Caesar, already bound by marriage, made the audacious choice to pledge his support and affection to Cleopatra, a decision that reverberated across the ancient world. This alliance transcended borders and empires, triggering ripples of uncertainty and intrigue among Caesar's contemporaries and rivals. Ptolemy XIII, undeterred by Julius Caesar's demand to disband his army and leave, arrived in Alexandria at the helm of his troops, openly defying Caesar's orders. Initially, Cleopatra opted for diplomacy, sending envoys to Caesar. However, upon hearing rumors that Caesar had a penchant for affairs with royal women, she decided to personally meet him in Alexandria. Accounts of this meeting differ among historians. According to Cassius Dio, Cleopatra arrived unannounced, dressed alluringly, and captivated Caesar with her wit. On the other hand, Plutarch presents an alternative version in which Cleopatra was concealed within a bedsack, smuggled into the palace to meet Caesar. The tension in Alexandria reached its zenith when Ptolemy XIII, Cleopatra's younger brother and co-ruler, discovered the presence of his sister within the palace, not only in the company of Julius Caesar but also in a liaison that challenged the very fabric of their family's rule. Incensed by this revelation and viewing it as a threat to his own authority, Ptolemy XIII sought to harness the people's anger. In the wake of Caesar's persuasive intervention, the frenzied mob began to dissipate, their fervor quelled by the compelling force of his words. The tumultuous potential for violence was averted, and a fragile calm descended upon Alexandria. Julius Caesar took Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII before the assembly of Alexandria, where he unveiled a significant document, the written will of their father, Ptolemy XIV. This document, previously in the possession of Pompey, explicitly named Cleopatra and Ptolemy III as joint heirs to the Egyptian throne. Caesar's intention was to solidify the legitimacy of their rule by the authority of this will. Additionally, he sought to address potential challenges to their rule by arranging for the other two siblings, Arsinoe IV and Ptolemy XIV, to jointly rule over Cyprus. This move not only removed possible rival claimants to the Egyptian throne, but also aimed to placate the Ptolemaic subjects who harbored resentment over the loss of Cyprus to the Romans in 58 BC. It was a calculated effort to secure Cleopatra and Ptolemy IV, hold on power while preserving stability in Egypt. Evaluating the terms of this agreement, Poteinos perceived it as favoring Cleopatra over Ptolemy X. With Ptolemy X's substantial army of 20,000 soldiers, which included the formidable Gabiniani, it seemed plausible that they could overpower Caesar's relatively modest force of 4,000 unsupported troops. In response to this assessment, Poteinos made a fateful decision. He chose to send Achillas to lead their forces in an attack on both Caesar and Cleopatra in Alexandria. This decision marked a critical juncture in the unfolding power struggle, as the tensions within the Ptolemaic court escalated into open conflict. The prolonged armed conflict in Egypt stretched on, casting a long shadow over the year 47 BC. The land of the pharaohs, steeped in ancient traditions and political complexities, remained embroiled in a relentless struggle for control. Yet, amid this protracted turbulence, a tragic twist of fate unfolded. Ptolemy XIII, Cleopatra's younger brother and co-ruler, found himself entangled in the tumultuous events of the time. Fleeing from the relentless advance of Julius Caesar's formidable legions, Ptolemy XIII navigated in the Nile River near the storied city of Alexandria. In the chaos and disarray of this desperate flight, Ptolemy XIII, burdened by the weight of kingship and the unrelenting pursuit of his adversaries, met a tragic and watery end. The Nile, a river that had cradled Egypt's civilization for millennia, now bore witness to the poignant conclusion of a young ruler's aspirations. The loss of Ptolemy XIII signaled not just the end of a turbulent chapter in Egypt's history, but a profound transformation in the political landscape. With the sweeping arrival of Julius Caesar and the subsequent control he exercised over Egypt, Cleopatra faced a pivotal moment in her reign, a moment that would test her political acumen and her ability to navigate the turbulent currents of power. Swiftly, yet with calculated precision, she orchestrated a series of strategic moves that would re-establish her dominion over the throne of Egypt. Determined to maintain her grip on power, she made a bold and unorthodox decision. She married her 12-year-old brother, Ptolemy XV, an act that, in the eyes of ancient Egypt, symbolized the unity of the ruling dynasty. During this tumultuous period, Cleopatra's life bore witness to yet another significant development. Amidst the political machinations and the complexities of her relationship with Julius Caesar, she gave birth to a child whose paternity was shrouded in intrigue. In the eyes of her contemporaries, including those within the hallowed halls of Rome, there was a prevailing belief that this child was the progeny of Caesar himself. This child, Cleopatra's son, was named Caesarion, a name that boldly affirmed his lineage and secured his place in the tumultuous tapestry of history. This declaration initiated a propaganda war between Antony and Octavian. Octavian accused Antony of being under Cleopatra's influence, claiming that he would abandon Rome and establish a new capital in Egypt. The tension escalated, leading to the Roman Senate stripping Antony of his titles in late 32 BC. Octavian declared war on Cleopatra, setting the stage for a historic conflict with profound consequences for the Roman Republic. Downfall and untimely death. The pivotal moment arrived on September 2nd, 31 BC at the Battle of Actium, where Octavian's forces decisively defeated those of Antony and Cleopatra. In the midst of this critical battle, Cleopatra's fleet abandoned the fight and hastily retreated to Egypt. Antony, determined to be with Cleopatra, managed to break away from the battle with a few remaining ships. As Alexandria came under siege from Octavian's forces, Antony received a distressing rumor that Cleopatra had taken her own life. Grief-stricken and believing he had lost the woman he loved, Antony made a tragic decision. He fell on his own sword, ending his life. Tragically, news arrived shortly afterward that the rumor had been false. Cleopatra was still alive, but Antony's life had already been tragically cut short, marking a dramatic and poignant turning point in their story. In his final moments, according to Plutarch, Antony was still alive as he was brought to Cleopatra at her tomb. He shared with her that he had met his end with honor. Antony also conveyed a message of trust, advising her to rely on Gaius Proculeius, a companion of Octavian, over anyone else in Octavian's retinue. However, the situation took a different turn. It was Gaius Proculeius who skillfully infiltrated Cleopatra's tomb using a ladder. He apprehended the queen, preventing her from carrying out her plan to end her life with her treasures. Instead, Cleopatra was allowed to proceed with the embalming and burial of Antony within her tomb before she was escorted to the palace. These poignant and dramatic moments marked the conclusion of the legendary love story between Cleopatra and Mark Antony, forever etched in history. When Cleopatra discovered malicious intentions of Gaius Proculeius to hold her as a captive, she decided to take her own life with the help of her servants. The exact details of Cleopatra's death remain somewhat elusive. It is widely believed that Cleopatra took her own life through the bite of an asp, a venomous snake, a method that would have allowed her to die with a degree of dignity and in accordance with her own terms. This act, a symbol of her fierce devotion to her independence and the love she shared with Antony, brought her life to a tragic end. Cleopatra's death marked the closing chapter of a remarkable era in Egyptian history, and her legacy endures as one of the most enigmatic and celebrated figures of antiquity. Lesser known of Cleopatra. Cleopatra's death is shrouded in legend, with the popular narrative suggesting that she took her own life with the assistance of a venomous snake known as an asp. However, there is no concrete proof to confirm this account. Additionally, archaeologists have yet to discover the mausoleum where Cleopatra and, likely, Antony met their ends. Much of ancient Alexandria, where these events unfolded, now lies submerged about 20 feet underwater, making such discoveries challenging. The accuracy of historical portrayals of Cleopatra remains a subject of debate, as these depictions are often contradictory and influenced by the biases of their respective eras. Some surviving coins depict Cleopatra as an unremarkable-looking woman, while others present her as a mirror image of Antony, reflecting the opinions of their creators regarding the Egyptian queen's relationship with her Roman lover. Another contentious issue surrounds Cleopatra's racial background. Although historians emphasize that our understanding of race as we know it today did not exist during Cleopatra's time, written sources about Cleopatra are notably scarce, as the Library of Alexandria, where contemporary accounts of her may have existed, suffered multiple destructions. Plutarch, an ancient chronicler, provided one of the most detailed accounts of Cleopatra's reign in his biography of Antony. He described her as a woman of remarkable beauty and intellectual prowess, but it's crucial to note that he wrote about Cleopatra many centuries after her death and approached her story from a distinctly Roman perspective. The mystery surrounding Cleopatra's life, her death, and her true character continues to captivate scholars and enthusiasts, making her a perennial enigma in history. Legacy and profound impact of Cleopatra. Following Cleopatra's tragic suicide, her three surviving children, Cleopatra Selene II, Alexander Helios, and Ptolemy Philadelphos, were sent to Rome under the guardianship of Octavia the Younger, who had been a former wife of their father, Mark Antony. Cleopatra Selene II and Alexander Helios were notably present during Octavian's Roman triumph in 29 BC. However, The subsequent fates of Alexander Helios and Ptolemy Philadelphos remain shrouded in mystery. Octavia arranged a betrothal between Cleopatra Selene II and Juba II, the son of Juba I. Juba I's North African kingdom of Numidia had been turned into a Roman province in 46 BC by Julius Caesar, owing to Juba I's support of Pompey. In 25 BC, the Emperor Augustus orchestrated the installation of Juba II and Cleopatra Selene II as the new rulers of Mauritania. They established their capital in the revamped Carthaginian city of Iol, renaming it Caesarea Mauritaniae, which is modern-day Seychelles, Algeria. Cleopatra Selene brought a significant influx of scholars, artists, and advisors from her mother's royal court in Alexandria to Caesarea, infusing the city with Hellenistic Greek culture. Her son was named Ptolemy of Mauritania, in honor of their Ptolemaic heritage. Cleopatra Selene II passed away around 5 BC, and upon Juba II's death in 2324 AD, he was succeeded by their son, Ptolemy. Unfortunately, Ptolemy met a tragic end, executed by the Roman Emperor Caligula in 40 AD, possibly on the pretext of unauthorized coin minting and the use of imperial regalia. Ptolemy of Mauritania marked the last known monarch of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Although the Ptolemaic dynasty officially came to an end, the legacy of Cleopatra lived on. Even Queen Zenobia of the short-lived Palmyrene Empire in the crisis of the 3rd century claimed descent from Cleopatra. Additionally, a cult devoted to Cleopatra persisted, as evidenced by its existence as late as 373 AD, when an Egyptian scribe named Ptah mentioned overlaying a figure of Cleopatra with gold in the Book of Isis. Cleopatra's enduring influence continued to be felt long after her time. Here comes a tragic end to Cleopatra, the last active pharaoh's epic journey. Her life story and empire is a tale of classical political rivalry, love affairs, and controversies. But her impact is profound and still persists. What do you think about Cleopatra and his life? Do you think his tragic end was just? We would love to hear what you think about Cleopatra in the comments below. On that note, we are wrapping up today's video. If you enjoyed today's journey back in time, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family who would enjoy this intriguing story of Cleopatra. Smash the subscribe button to keep an eye on our exciting documentaries. We will see you soon with another video.